Hi there and welcome back, and in this lesson we're going to be talking about what happens with your brain when you're happy, and it's truly fascinating. Now, positive psychologists are beginning to learn more and more about what actually happens in the brain when we're happy, and in very simplistic terms, here is what they've currently learned to discover. Two basic areas of the brain that we're interested in are the mammalian brain, located in the front part of the skull, and the reptilian brain, which is located at the base of the skull in the back of the head. Now, most animals share the reptilian brain with us humans, but as the name suggests, the mammalian brain is unique to the realm of mammals. In humans, this area of the brain is more developed than it is in other mammals, however. The mammalian brain is further divided into four large lobes, with two lobes in the front and two lobes in the back. Logic and reason are the dominant activities of the two frontal lobes of the mammalian brain. The lobes further back in the skull largely control movements and that sort of thing. And what scientists have discovered is that when the left frontal lobe of the brain is active, we feel happy, and when the right frontal lobe is active, we feel sad. Now, positive psychologists are now researching ways in which people can learn to feel better emotionally simply by stimulating activity in the left frontal lobe and slowing down activity in the right frontal lobe. This, in a nutshell, by the way, is what the work of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, attempts to help you guys to do, okay, whether it knows it or not. So, scientists once thought that all emotion originated in the reptilian brain. However, later research indicates that the activities of the reptilian brain and the mammalian brain are much more closely linked than they first believed. In other words, thinking and emotion are strongly interrelated. How we think and what we think about determines in large part how we feel emotionally. Now, we've talked about this idea in earlier videos in this course, but it's an important point that can't be overstressed, and it's something that I go into a lot more detail about in my NLP courses. Because you see, whatever image we hold of an event or a situation is simply a perception of it that we essentially make up in our mind. Which means, of course, that if we're making up the picture and the perception of it, what that means is that we can make it whatever we wish. And what's more, science has now proven this notion to be true beyond a shadow of a doubt. What we think about, the internal representations that we hold, in large part determines our state and our emotions. And the most important point to note about this is that we have the ability to choose what we think about. We now know that we have the ability to expose ourselves to thoughts that make us feel better, that feel better to us. And we further have the ability to limit our exposure to thoughts and activities that make us feel sad. We can also choose activities that will trigger the release of feel-good chemicals. For example, we can engage in work or play that has meaning for us. We can also spend time with people that we care about. A few minutes spent in the sunshine can work wonders for us, as will an afternoon of having fun. And as we learn, we talked about physical exercise. We can take a brisk walk, play a round of golf, take a swim or ride a bike to stimulate the flow of hormones that will make our brains light up with happiness. And in fact, there are several of these feel-good hormones. Dopamine is one of them. Dopamine motivates you to take action and then persist in your activities. So how do you ensure that you're getting a good dose of dopamine in your life? Well, you can consciously choose to stimulate the release of dopamine by setting new goals for yourself and taking steps towards the fulfillment of those goals. Another feel-good brain chemical is oxytocin, which stimulates feelings of trust and well-being. And a really good way to give yourself a good dose of oxytocin is to be close to a loved one, maybe even giving them a hug. And then there's serotonin, a brain chemical which has lots of functions in the brain and in the body, including stimulating that kind of feeling of confidence that you get when you feel respected. And you can bolster up the production of serotonin in your brain by choosing to believe in your own self-worth, with affirmations and that sort of thing. Reflecting on gratitude and past successes can also stimulate the production of serotonin and improve your mood generally, as can using these positive affirmations that I mentioned. Now, one of the reasons that a few minutes of sunshine feels so good to us is that sunshine actually stimulates the release of serotonin. Endorphins are another class of these feel-good chemicals, and believe it or not, endorphins have a structure that's actually very similar to opiates, and they diminish the perception of pain. So how do you release endorphins? Well, endorphins get released when the body has been pushed to its limits. They're among the flight or fight chemicals, the power boosters that help you to push through those difficult tasks that you're determined to see through to completion. So you can boost your distribution of endorphins through exercise. Now, it may take some practice, but with time you can retrain your thinking and learn new habits that will keep your brain happy. And of course, that means that you can employ strategies for tackling the times when you feel a bit fed up. For example, I now have a treadmill in my office, so when I feel a little bit overwhelmed or anxious, I leap onto the treadmill and I smash out a 5 or a 10k run, and then I feel on top of the world. Okay, so let's move on now to the next lesson in our program and go all the way through to the end of that one now, and I'll see you there.